guys. So I'm going to try to get through this. It's been a day. Sometimes, everything you touch just, combust. Well, that was today, but it's going to be okay because tomorrow we can do it all again. So I'm going to try to do a video where we're going to study one of the smallest herbs we've ever looked at so far. So in fact, if I was to take these and pour them in your hand, well, you might not think much about them. They're just teeny tiny little seeds, and they're not colorful. They're not flashy. And unless you cook a lot, you may have walked right past them in the grocery store. But for thousands of years, well, people thought enough of them to intentionally harvest them, save them, trade them, plant them, cook with them, and study these tiny little seeds. So there's got to be something here. So whenever you see that and those patterns, you have to think to yourself, well, what's going on there? Why would generation after generation keep coming back to this tiny little seed? So today we're going to answer that question, and let's meet our friend Fennel. So we're going to start with how we always start, right? Before we ever open a book or do anything else, we're going to observe. I want you to look. Try to get this as close as I possibly can to the camera without flipping everything over, because that's the day I'm having. So what do you notice, right? They're about the size of a grain of rice. They're not perfectly straight. Some of them even have a curve to them. You can see tiny ridges running from one end to the other. And those ridges aren't just decoration, they're part of the seed's structure. So notice the color, right? Depending on how they've been dried, they could be pale green, they could be yellow green, or they could be this lovely shade of brown. So already we've learned several things, and we haven't even opened our book yet. So one of the best skills, right, as we know, an herbalist can develop is learning through observation, right? If all the books went away tomorrow and we had to learn, we need to learn through observation. So now we're going to do something very simple. If you have fennel, I want you to take one seed and I want you to gently crush it. Now, if it's too much, because some people's fingers aren't there, you can crush it with a spoon. And now I want you to smell it. There's a difference, slight difference. It seems to be more in your face now with the scent, as we're like, there's a scent here, probably because there's 8 billion of them, but there's more of a scent here once we broke the seed open. It changed, and that's because many of the plant's aromatic oils are protected inside the seed. And breaking the seed releases those compounds into the air, and that's why many herbal tea recipes will recommend that you lightly crush the fennel seeds before steeping them. So if you have a tea and you're not really getting that fennel taste to it, it's probably because your seeds need to be broken. So now we're going to step back from the seed for a moment and look at the whole plant. Fennel is actually a large, graceful herb. It can easily grow 5 or 6 feet tall. Its leaves are soft and feathery and almost remind people of dill. During the summer, it produces large umbrella-shaped clusters of bright yellow flowers. Those flowers are incredibly attractive to bees and other pollinating insects. And as the season progresses, each flower slowly develops into the seeds I showed you just a few minutes ago. And so it's amazing when you think about it, right? Everything we've been studying today began as a flower, right? We know the different parts that we use. Well, now we're talking about the seed, but the seed was originally the flower. So I think that's kind of a unique thing to call out. So people have been using fennel for a very long time. The ancient Egyptians grew it. The Greeks wrote about it. The Romans carried it pretty much throughout Europe. You can even find it in some of that historical information. Over time, it found its way into kitchens and gardens and herbal traditions, well, pretty much around most of the world today. One tradition that still survives, right, is in India, or Indian restaurants in this country. After the meal, they have fennel seeds for people to chew. This isn't a brand new health trend. It's a tradition that's been passed down through generations. So whenever you see a custom like that, right, not all customs and everything else are necessarily something we need to like embrace, but it's something that shows, they really cared about this plant, because it tells you consistently what people found valuable. Where are they placing these fennel seeds? Well, after the meal. It's a carminative, right? So why has fennel earned its place in the digestive herbs, right? That's why it's where it is in our running of herbs, right? Well, one reason is its aroma. That same aromatic oils you notice when you crush the seeds have traditionally made fennel a favorite after meals, like we talked about. Herbalists have long appreciated fennel because of its traditional role in supporting comfortable digestion, right? So it can help with bloat, gas, like those types of things. Many people prepare the seeds as a tea. Others just like to directly chew them after eating. Some actually just include them in herbal formulations, right? So they've just got a tincture they can take. But notice what I'm saying. I'm not saying fennel takes over your digestive system and cures all your issues, right? Our digestive system is already an incredibly complex design, right? And everything does what it's supposed to do there. This is just supporting the natural functions, right? So remember, as herbalist, you don't ask what herb is fixing my digestion, right? You ask what plants have traditionally been appreciated for supporting normal digestive function. And fennel has just been one of those plants for centuries. So if we take one more look at the seed, right, that sweet aroma you noticed has a name. It's one of fennel's primary aromatic constituents, and it's anthanol, and it's largely responsible for that sweet licorice-like scent that fennel is famous for. And I don't like licorice, but I like fennel, right? So the seed contains other volatile oils that contributed to the aroma and flavor, but again, we're not trying to be chemists, but it is kind of fun to know the chemical names, right? And it's a way to connect what we're observing, right? That it's chemistry, right? And this plant, we're learning more about what's going on inside the plant, like when we crush that seed, right? We weren't just smelling a spice because that's how it's been represented to us. We were experiencing the chemistry of the plant. We harmed the seed, and therefore it evoked that smell, right? So one of the reasons, right, that fennel has remained so popular is because it is very versatile, right? You can use them in teas, tinctures, you see them added to breads, right? Soups, some sausages, spice blends, desserts, and the bulb is eaten as a vegetable, right? And those feathery leaves can be used as an herb. It's a wonderful example of a plant where like multiple parts have found a place in both the kitchen and the herbal practice. So if you decide to take on and grow some fennel yourself, it's actually a very fun plant. I see it a lot in gardens. I've never really had the space anywhere I live, but it prefers full sun and well-drained soil. I always end up in a murky bottom, but because it grows quite tall, it's beautiful at the back of your herb garden, right? So your goal is harvesting seeds, right? So if you want to harvest the seeds, you allow the flowers to completely mature. And as the seed heads dry, you can cut them and place them in a pepper bag and then just gently shake the seeds free. You store them in an airtight glass jar away from light and moisture, and they'll remain there fine. That's just it. It's very simple to harvest the seeds. If you're up for a little bit of homework, for those of us that like hands-on experience, I want you to take a teaspoon of fennel seeds. I want you to lightly crush them, again with a spoon if your fingers aren't strong enough, right? I want you to pour hot water over them, cover the cup, and let it steep for about 10 to 15 minutes. And before you take your first sip, I want you to smell the steam. We notice we covered it, so we keep in those aromatic compounds, right? And I want you to notice how different it smells from the dry seeds you just play with, right? And then I want you to slowly taste it and pay attention to what you notice. Not what you expect, not what I told you, just simply what do you notice? And that's where true learning begins, right? And that's why I'm trying to step us through learning how to observe and not just, this is fennel and this is why you use it and it could cause some problems, right? So no, we're going to learn how to think through this. So fennel is not just a spice. It's not just a seed. It's a remarkable plant with a history stretching back thousands of years. From ancient gardens to modern kitchen, fennel has remained a trusted companion because people continue to grow it, prepare it, passing on that knowledge from one generation to the next. Tummy hurts? Here's some fennel. So next time, right, we're going to find another remarkable plant. Any guesses on the next one we're going to do in our digestive system? We're kind of powering through these, which I'm kind of excited about. Because once we learn each individual herb, and there's more, right, I'm just kind of hitting the hot topics of the most common, the ones that are easy to use, right, the ones that you feel safe using. There's going to be other herbs we're going to get into later. We're going to do more formulations. There's just a lot that we can do, but I want to kind of get us familiar with the familiar herbs and a different understanding of them. And then we're just going to kind of keep layering on it. And I'm kind of teaching it to you guys the way that I learned it myself. I'm very hands-on. I really like to get into things. I mean, I can read it in a book 1,000 times, but if I don't do it myself, it's just never going to stay in my brain. So I hope I actually made some sense, and I'm so ready for this day to be over. But until next time, guys, I would like you to stay rooted, stay curious, and as always, keep growing in grace.